What's going on, everybody? This is Grandstand Golf, and we are talking to the BMW Championship DFS preview show and PGA picks. This is Adam Bapty hosting, and as always, I'm joined by Craig. Craig, what's going on?
Oh, Adam, you've frozen on me that for a second there, but not much is going on with me. Just been working through building the model today, and yeah, having a look at the what is it, Olympia Fields? Can you tell me anything about that?
Yeah, so we're at Olympia Fields for the BMW Championship. It is just south of Chicago in Illinois. It's a par 70, just over 7 yards, two par fives that are over 600 yards, one par three that's over 250 yards. So it is one of the longest par 70 courses that we've really seen on the PGA circuit. The PGA Tour hasn't been here in a while. We had the 2003 US Open and we had the 2015 US Amateur, but that's pretty much this caliber of play at that course. So what did the model say about the what kind of player would succeed here?
Well, so basically the model, the way I've set it up right now, it just weighs the different strokes gain categories. So
Right.
based on previous years at a course, and in this case, it especially used similar types of courses. So basically, we ended up with 40% uh, off the tee, 28% approach. Uh, 15% around the green, and then about 18% putting.
Okay.
So basically, and then if there is, it's not just the percentages, it's also then like some courses are much more, we've got a lot more confidence that every year the same stat is there. So
Right.
the overall amount that we can, the predictability, I guess, of the course is something that we is low in this case.
Sure.
So it's just a little bit more of a feeling it out model this week.
Yeah, it seems from what I've read, it seems to be kind of a major setup, narrow fairways. You need to be strong off the tee. It's an interesting event because we have no cut. So all 70 players that start the week, I think that changes things a little bit for DFS purposes. Are you going to want to focus more on birdie or better percentage? Are you going to look at guys that are maybe a little bit streakier, knowing that they don't have to worry about that initial cut and they can play all 4 days and collect those points? It's going to be interesting. It's similar to kind of a WGC type event. What are your thoughts there when you're looking at construction or roster construction?
I mean, I guess to me it's a lot like choosing the WGCs.
Yeah.
So I think you need to try to pick guys that have win equity, because if in a normal week, say you get your 6 out of 6 but you don't have the winner, I
Right.
think that there's a lot more possibility to, you may not end up at the very top of a GPP, but you're going to get a pretty good cash out of it.
For
um,
sure. Yeah.
in this in this type of situation, though, I think that's when you really want to make sure you're picking winners. And
Oh, that's
even
it.
if you pick
That's simple.
from your lower, well, no, but like sometimes with the lower end guys, you're like, I really don't think this guy has much of a chance to win, but he's a
Yeah.
good cut maker. So I think I'm just gonna look for those lower end guys that are maybe not a chance to win, but they've got a better chance of top fiving, say, in a strong
I
field.
was gonna say, when we kind of look at maybe the 7,000 and below on rankings or the 73,000 and below, I think you're right. I don't know if you're gonna look for a winner. I don't know if this championship, this playoffs, this course setup calls for that much of a long shot. But can you find someone that makes a couple eagles, maybe with two par fives, not a couple, an eagle or two, a bunch of birdies, and scores a top 15 and gets you enough points to take home a GBP, right?
Yeah. So on that note, do you want to jump in and talk through the numbers a bit?
Absolutely.
Talk through.
Are we up on the FanDuel or DraftKings model? Which one do you want to
Oh, sorry, I'm up
start with?
on FanDuel, but I think we'll talk through the
Yeah.
DraftKings and then just see if there's any guys that make sense as values on FanDuel over DraftKings.
Yeah, for sure. So world number one, Dustin Johnson, cleared the field by 11 strokes last week. He kind of flashed that he is the best golfer when everything is clicking, and he is priced, I think, what is it, $500 above Rom at the
Yeah,
next spot.
$500 clear. So just you can see here, this is the actual, sort of like the predictive value. And you could roughly think about this as a percent. So
Right.
like how much more, maybe we say DJ's 11% more likely to win than someone who would be around zero.
Right.
It's not exactly what it is, but it can just be a good way to conceptualize it. So you
Right.
see up here, like while these top guys, their value may be scattered, all of these guys have good shots of actually winning the tournament. And that's the important thing to keep in mind, that DJ's value is taking into account a lot of his poor play from this year, and so I like him more than this value reflects, because he was just lights out. His ball striking's on fire. I think if you can look at these last three tournaments, and I think what was it, 12 straight rounds in the 60s, or 11 straight, one of
I'm
those two.
not, yeah, I'm not sure. So, I mean, I get why he's priced that high. I think when you kind of try to wrap your head around, can he even get close to what he did last week? We heard a lot on the broadcast of what players do after they shoot a 59, with Scheffler getting a 59, and often they can't repeat. I think, what was their stroke average? Something like 68 or 69 the next day. I think this kind of feels like that. I mean, that's one round, but now we're looking at one tournament where you had kind of that 59 type of performance where you're so much better than everyone else. He just seems priced so high. He kind of has that feeling, that swagger, like the Michael Jordan of golf right now. For me, this might be crazy, but it's a pass. If I put in a couple lineups and I want to take GPP win, it's going to be a pass. I think he'll be popular. Um, I, I don't know. I think with the top five guys, you kind of have to pick a couple and just go with it. And DJ's not there for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that for me, the other thing that I look at is, okay, so just from the PGA, well, I guess all three of his better, first, second, and first at Travelers. He putted lights out. Like, this is per round. He was gaining over
Yeah.
a stroke and a half average probably, and like these numbers from last week are just
Yeah.
ridiculous. But if you look at DJ, if you look at his last 10 years, he's as good as anyone in terms of his stats.
Right.
But even still, his putting, like, he's a slight positive putter. So even if he's hitting the ball, I mean, if he's hitting the ball as well as he was last week, then yeah, I would put the money on him. But I think that that's not sustainable. So say you assume that the over-under on this is going to be somewhere just slightly north of zero. Just on that alone, then there's a bit of a hit. But I don't see myself getting there. I see better value at near the top than DJ. So
Yeah. And I think, at what point would you be disappointed with the performance? Does he need to top five for you to be happy putting 1100, 500 on him? Does And is that reliable, or can you go more even split with a couple of guys in the 9,000s rather than going all the way up to DJ? That's my thinking.
well, I think you take DJ because you think he's going to win. Like, if
Yeah.
you're spending that, I mean, you could probably get someone else in the nines or high eights, but you're
Right.
pretty much counting on him winning if you're taking that salary. Um,
And I think, interesting going down, if we're done with DJ, John Rahm comes in next at 11,000, 500 less, but he still actually has a price bump, or at least his placement is up from last week. I think he's been incredibly consistent. He kind of was a sneaky top six last week, tied for six. Every round in the 60s, he improved every round: 69, 67, 67, 65. I think one of those things that really seemed to drive him is that official world golf ranking, and the fact that he slipped again to second. JT got him the first time. Now DJ got him this time. I think that's kind of the motivation where he fits the course. He wants to get back to number one in the world. He's my pick to win. John Rahm.
He's your pick to win it all for the week.
He's my pick for the week. Yeah.
I like that. I had him in, I forget, about maybe about 40% of my lineups last week, and so I was very closely watching him, and he played super solid. If it hadn't been for DJ, I would have thought that John Rahm might have had a shot to pressure those guys, everyone else.
I
don't really have a negative thing to say about him other than in DFS he's pretty expensive still, so it's just a matter of whether you want to spend there or whether you want to look a little bit cheaper, but I've no real problem.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping, I think he was fourth last week. I was kind of hoping he'd be there again. Maybe JT would be over him. Bryson, having won the US Am, would be above him. But I mean, it is what it is. I feel that confident that the first lineup I put together, I did kind of select his name first. I just think he has all the makings of a winner this week. I think also when we're looking at the year, you need to look for players that have, let's say, a top 15 with at least the PGA or after. So PGA, Wyndham, or last week. And if you're going further than that, I think Memorial might be the best example of the type of style of course these guys will see. I think it's kind of that major test, that longer rough, that longer course. And he won there. So just seems like a good fit.
Yeah, no, I like it. I potentially, I don't know whether I'll end up with him in DFS or not, but the other thing to look at is not just, I mean, 2019 starts to matter less and less. So if you just look at 2020, he's second in value. So I like that a lot.
So going down, Justin Thomas next at 10,800.
Yeah, JT, I think it's hard not to like him. I'll definitely end up with him in lineups at this price. If you can get JT 700 cheaper than anyone, it feels like a pretty good deal.
I agree. Yeah.
So JT to win it, yeah, JT can win any week. He has clearly hit.
And that's the thing. He is a winner. He just closes so often, it seems, more often than almost he should. Like he kind of overperforms or over delivers. It seems like when you're looking at that top echelon.
Yeah. Now, does this give you any cause for concern? Because you were saying you're only looking at guys that have top 15 in the last.
Yeah, actually, it does. I don't think I'll get to JT myself, but I can understand how people will. So Craig's kind of pointing out that his last 2 weeks haven't been necessarily best. I think 37th PGA and 49th in last week. Is that correct?
Yeah. Now, both of those he putted fairly poorly, so that is something to keep in mind. That since the restart, the Schwab to the FedEx St. Jude when he won, he had 4 top 10s. He was putting better then, so it's a little like I don't knock this as much. I think there's just that same putting variance.
Sure.
I don't think that's long term what his new putting stats are going to be. So I've got no problem. I'm going to end up with him in DFS.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And actually, I kind of think if we're looking at the top 5 guys, DJ, Rahm, JT, Bryson, and Rory, he kind of fits in the middle there, and it's kind of maybe less sexy of a pick just because he does everything so well, but he's not kind of that bomber, or he doesn't have that fire of Rahm, or DJ has that performance, and Rory, I don't know, Rory's Rory, right? So maybe he kind of slips a little bit or is not on as many radars. I don't know. I like that aspect of it, but I don't think I'll get there myself.
See, I disagree a little bit on the fire part. Just John Rahm has a little bit more than the
emotions.
Yeah, what is the word I'm looking for? Volatility, maybe?
Yeah.
Whereas JT to me is more like he's the fiery competitive type.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end up with JT. I don't know. Is he Kevin's pick to win this week? Is that?
So he is Kevin's pick to win. So we'll recap the picks at the end, but he is Kevin's pick to win.
Yeah, which I mean, that's you got to feel super safe taking JT as your pick to win.
I think he'll make the cut here too. That's a safe one for Kevin.
So moving on to Bryson.
Yeah, Bryson. I mean, what can you say? 10,600 USM champ here. What was it back in 2015? I mean, he is a different player then, but I think that goes to show for perhaps people that are newer to golf that he's not just kind of this long drive champ turned PGA professional. He has all the tools in the game at his disposal, but he's not necessarily clicking right now. So I think he's a little bit discounted because he missed the cut last week. He was my pick last week at the Northern Trust, and he was disappointing. I think I said yesterday on our 117th in putting on the week. So he's
Sorry, you just
really
broke up on me a touch there, Adam. He was 17th in putting, or what was it that you'd said?
sorry, he was 117th in putting at the Northern Trust. So he was horrible. He lost strokes on approach. I, I'm really conflicted here with Bryson. Maybe you can steer me one way or the other. What are you thinking?
So Bryson is, I mean, maybe it's just again picking the lowest hanging fruit and following the model as you can, but Bryson's my pick to win. I think that it's for me it's just putting that faith in the model being right on off the tee being the most decisive stat. Oh, this isn't. Oh, these are all the years. Got you. Um, but yeah, no, I Bryson's putter, when Bryson can putt, then I think that he's going to be competing with anyone. His off the tee is super consistent, even in weeks where he's not, he's spraying it a bit,
Right.
which he's really not doing a ton of. It's really his approach and around the green play that's let him down, I think.
So can
I
you click
think,
on him to see his last few tournaments
yeah,
and his putting strokes here? So he has been positive up until the Northern Trust.
yeah, we don't have the strokes gained from the missed cuts, but that wasn't the worst missed cut at
No,
Memorial.
he
If
had
he
that
wouldn't have
fence
hit
issue.
if he wouldn't
Yeah.
have hit a 10 on that hole or whatever it was, then
Yeah.
it would have been a different story. But no, I think the narrative around Bryson is that he's playing a gimmicky game. I think it discounts the fact that he has been a great golfer since he was, however,
For
10
sure.
years old or
Completely
15. Like,
agree. Yeah.
so yeah, I don't think there's much more to say. He's gonna drive it well. If he puts it well, I think he's gonna be in contention as we get close to Sunday.
So
So
he didn't make my first lineup. I was thinking about him for a pick, but I think I'll get there for my second lineup. I think he just when he's when everything is on, he is so good, or he can be so good, and he has a string of kind of top performances this year, which leads to think that he's gonna win a type of tournament like this. And the fact that he's won here before is just kind of the cherry on top to me. I like
yeah,
it.
I do think the one thing that I think that Bryson is going to have to do is win some stronger fields, and so
Right.
this will be a good chance to do that.
Yep.
So yeah, no, we'll see. Rory, I think this is a fairly contentious one right now.
This is bizarre. His last, I mean, how he's performed through the last few tournaments is kind of mind-boggling. If any time at any point in the year, if you were to say that Rory would be, what is it, $200 above Webb Simpson, you would be like, what tournament is this? Is Webb gone out of control, or is Rory just did he get in an accident?
Hmm.
It seems like a crazy price discount, but it seems relative to his last month and a half, and it kind of fits.
Yeah, I mean the model loves him, but that is based in large part on his play last year when he was
Right.
the number one player in strokes gained. So um, by a fairly healthy margin too. So I I mean I'm a big Rory fan. I heard something, I forget where I heard it, but he has some absurd string. I want to say maybe 9 straight tournaments without a top 10. I'll have to look up the actual number, but it's the longest such streak he's had since 2009. So
Wow.
with all this talk about him struggling to find the inspiration and find the motivation and everything, I think likely I'm still gonna end up with some ownership share, even though he was my stock down. My
Right.
stock on him going in was so high that
Yeah.
still,
I mean, he's a $2 trillion company, and he's just kind of lost a couple of billion, right?
yeah.
I
Everyone else's stock is down on him right now too. It's a little bit to me. This is a strategy I take in NFL DFS tournaments
right,
with stud running backs or stud receivers. If they have had a couple bad weeks in a row,
right,
and that people are not giving them the respect that that player deserves,
right.
then I think that's when it's not like Rory's never going to play good golf again. So that's when you kind of go against the grain and buy low.
Absolutely. And I think to be early on a guy like Rory, and maybe his ownership is drastically lower than kind of the four guys above him, that you can get him. And if you get him early and he does produce a win, which I mean, he is almost kind of a 10% chance to win this tournament, even if he's not in his best form. That I mean, it seems crazy to not kind of take that chance, even with kind of a flyer.
Well, the switch is going to flip, so it's just a matter of like the same thing with that has happened. I think with DJ, like the switch flipped and now he's lights out. That's going to happen at some point with Rory. So
And
if you can time it and get ahead of it, then you'll win some money that week.
And I also just have this kind of feeling that he's talking more in the media about how he's not kind of getting there maybe mentally or emotionally up for these rounds. Maybe that's part of it, to kind of put it back on him, and his performance is going to kind of come out, and he's putting the pressure on himself.
Accountability and
Yeah,
taking ownership of it. And yeah, I see what you're saying.
yeah, yeah. I think if he might be, I like him this week.
I think so. Likely, I'll end up sprinkling ownership with JT, Bryson, and Rory in this top area. I always like some Xander because this guy can win any tournament. But just in terms of the stars, I don't know. Rahm, I might. DJ, I don't think I will, just because I think that I think it's just an against the grain pick for me.
Right.
But yeah, so onto Webb.
Yeah, I mean, it does it not seem a little bit bizarre that we have six guys here, and it seems to be to me at least, in terms of the name, the profile of these players, a big. I mean, going from Bryson to Rory is kind of maybe a step down in pricing, but from Rory to Webb seems a little bit bizarre to me.
The fact that it's such a small step, you mean?
Exactly, and the fact that he's over 10,000.
Yeah, but he's been playing well, so I get it. I think that Webb is one of these guys that can lull you to sleep with how good he is. I think he fully deserves to be up in this range, whether it's 10-1 or it's the same as Xander at 9-9. Like, I think this is the right area for him. It's just a matter of whether you want to pay up for him.
Yeah.
I don't think I will this week. I mean, he's showing up negative in the value. The lack of off the tee play is likely the reason for that. If you look at his history, maybe I should sort of.
It seems a little bit it seems a little bit boring. I know he's kind of backed into a couple top tens, and I don't know. I'm not going to get there. If people want to get that level of consistency, I can see it, but.
And I haven't had a chance to read. I mean, Webb's the kind of guy I like to pick on weeks where they call it a second shot course.
Right.
And you can see that because of how good his approach play has been through the last 10 years.
Right.
So I don't know what you've been reading, but like what I have seen just talks about the length of the course and talks about it as a long course, and the model reflected that the off the tee was slightly weighted higher than approach. And
I think that's a very interesting point, because everyone we've gone through is amazing with their driver and amazing off the tee, and that's why they're usually the top kind of 5, 6 players in the world. But is there also I think there might be a narrative to say that these par fives are not reachable on two, or I've heard there's very sharp dog legs at Olympia that maybe it's more. It might be. I mean, Jim Furyk won here at the U.S. Open, and
So
he's a driving
so you're
accuracy
saying
guy.
that essentially if you take the other approach and you approach it as a three shot par five,
You take
and
the Zach
you
Johnson,
take the
Kevin Kisner,
best
Brian
wedge
Harman.
players,
Yeah, I
like when
think that might
when
be.
Mike Weir was winning majors, or sorry, winning the Masters.
Yeah, I think that might be kind of a when we talk
A
about
sneaky play.
a sneaky play, how to kind of differentiate from the field because we don't have that cut, maybe leave salary on the board, but maybe a different ways to kind of pick those approach guys, pick those shorter players. I think that might be a sneaky way to. I don't know. It might. Maybe that's how it
I
kind
don't
of
hate
ends up.
it. I don't think I'm gonna get there, but I don't hate it.
I think just for instance, if you wanted to do an AM PM split for weather or something like that, why not do an approach split or a 3 shot kind of in split for these guys?
Yeah, well, and with that type of thing, maybe you take a bunch of guys of similar ilk, and then hope that that's how the course plays. But
I will say
I
as
think if anything, I'm gonna stack off the tee guys
yeah.
and hope that it's that type of a course.
So moving past 10,000, I do want to say because you kind of picked a couple of guys there. In my first initial build, I picked one in that range to get a little bit more in the 8,000s because I feel like when we talk about
So you picked one above
yeah, so
10?
I have Rom in there, and then I went for a little bit more consistency, so it's not kind of the stars and scrubs. You don't have two guys in the 6,000s because I think it is going to be a little bit harder for those guys to crack the top 10 or top 15.
So you can see a little bit the difference in our approaches because you're like, yeah, like I'm taking the one, and I'm like percentages. I put in, I'll probably do 20 of whatever tournament I find that I like, uh, just because I find I don't want to end up building 150 lineups, and I don't have an optimizer. So,
Yeah.
um, but I like to spread out a little bit more than you do, and so I'll end up with a few of these guys, but it's a little bit the difference in our approaches.
Yeah, I'm not a shotgun. I'm kind of a sniper, and usually that sniper misses. So all you need is that one headshot and confirm a kill, and maybe that's the win from someone down low. So below 10,000, let's just go kind of that whole 9,000 and above chunk. We have Xander Schauffele, Daniel Berger, Colin Morikawa, Jason Day, and Scotty Scheffler. What are kind of your thoughts moving down the list there?
I like Xander. I always like Xander. I think that in terms of guys in this range, I mean, he's at the highest end of this range. So I mean, basically, he's similar. He's almost the same price as Webb. But
Right.
I think that he's one of these. What do they call him? The big game hunter.
Yeah.
I think he's one of these guys that it doesn't matter what the field is. He's going to have his win equity because if he's playing his game well, then he's going to be competitive. Um, He's good off the tee. I mean, he's good everywhere. He's
I
playing
completely
fairly
agree.
well. Sorry, go ahead.
I completely agree, and I think if we kind of group these golfers in tiers, I think he's the top of that tier two, and I think maybe we could even see him make that jump pretty soon to, win a major, get in that top tier of guys. I just think everything lines up so well that he's going to be extremely popular, and that's my only caution right now. Just his ownership level, I think he might be the highest owned.
I'm not afraid of taking the popular person out. So, um, yeah, no, I think we quite clear we're both high on him. He's played well
Yeah,
of recent. I mean, he doesn't have any wins yet since the return, but it's just a matter of time with Sander.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
yeah, on to Berger.
I mean, Berger, I think heading into the Northern Trust, he was leading the entire PGA in strokes gained, tee to green. He's just really consistent. You can see kind of your point
Sorry, leading since the return.
since the COVID restart. You can see his finishes there, all the green kind of lighting up, the one miscut. But for the most part, he's been extremely consistent. You can see his total.
This is a pretty unreal recent
Yeah.
history. So just because I think we'll be doing this on audio only, we're just looking at his recent results since the return, and he has 4 top 5s, including a win. He missed the cut at Memorial, but other than that, his worst finish is a tie for 13th at the PGA Championship. So these are big fields too. It's not like these fields he's been top fiving in are weak
Yeah. I mean,
weak strength of fields.
yeah, and for some reason, I'm not there, and I don't know if it's because Xander's right in above him and Colin Morikawa was right below him, and I kind of like those guys a little bit more, but for some reason I'm just not there on Berger, and I feel like I potentially am missing out again.
So I think it is because of his recent results. He's up in a price range where we're not used to seeing him for, like maybe we see him at this kind of price range in a tournament where it's not all the stars are there,
Yeah.
but we don't usually see him up here in a loaded field, and that's a little bit maybe why it's hard to go to him there. I and I guess if we want to move on to Morikawa, I think
Well,
it's hard
yeah,
not.
because there's so many former major winners kind of below him. You almost feel like DraftKings took into account recent performance, and that's kind of how they kind of put together the whole pricing this week with Webb, with Berger. It doesn't seem a little bit right with the guys that they're around.
Yeah, I don't mind Webb because I think he's usually um, low top tier, high second tier.
Mhm.
Like I think that's where he lives in these kind of loaded fields. Uh, I think it's just unusual. Like Berger feels a bit more unusual,
Right.
um, but
Morikawa, I think.
I mean he's not going to the Masters, so he's
Uh,
not that good of a
yeah,
golfer.
exactly. He won't be there in November. Colin Morikawa, I really don't have any. Again, it's so hard. It's such a everyone in this field is extremely talented. We have the top 70 players, arguably in the world, at least for this year, and some potential years that didn't make it over. But he's just such a talented guy. I mean, it's hard to kind of you want to pick everyone, but again, I know he won the PGA, and there's no real flaws in his game besides putting, but that is so volatile week to
I
week. If
think he's
he's
cleaning that up too. I mean I think he's always going to have the perception that he's not a good putter because that one big missed putt um, that he lost the playoff to Berger
right,
at the Charles Schwab.
yeah,
But I think he's doing. I mean, not everyone. Most of these guys don't putt well every week. Um, he's had weeks where he's putted quite well. I mean, the PGA Championship, he was 2 strokes a round.
hmm
This is where I feel like your approach is crazy because I'm gonna probably have some sprinkling of ownership on Morikawa because I think
well, and just to clarify my approach, I'm talking about building one or two lineups, and that's why I can't pick everybody. I can't sprinkle in people because I'm looking at max kind of 12 golfers who are going to fit in this range for me. If, but I will say, if I decide to do a lineup based on approach, he might be a guy I'm looking at. I know he's also got the tee, but he is extremely accurate and he is so good with his irons.
yeah. So if you look, actually, I think him and JT are at the top of approach this year, which is pretty unreal for a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why he's number 5 in the world. As I mean, he's not officially a rookie, but
Right, right, right.
he essentially is. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have a little bit of him, and he's got a good shot of winning it.
Yeah. Jason
Jason
Day,
Day,
I faded him last week. It didn't. I mean, he was on a really hot streak leading up to his missed cut at the Northern Trust. He has 4 full days here. Again, I think he's perhaps priced a little bit on his former number one and the fact that he's gathered those 4 tournaments in a row. But again, it seems a little bit too pricey with the guys that are potentially below him or around him.
so just to clarify what Adam means, he from the workday through the PGA Championship, Jason Day had 4 straight top 10s, and those were pretty good fields, all 4 of those tournaments. So He did miss the cut last week at the Northern Trust, but going into that tournament, he was pretty hot.
Yeah.
And I just have a hard time taking him too. I think he's the kind of guy who he off the tee is never going to be his strength anymore. He just physically, his approach game can be bonkers, but usually he's one of these guys that his short game and his putting is making up for a lot of other areas, and I just don't like to count on those guys to go out and win tournaments. So.
You also just like, can you picture him at the end of Sunday holding the trophy? And I can't get there when I think there's guys perhaps more likely. You're smirking at him.
Well, it's just like a classic. I don't care whether I can pitch him or not. Like, yeah, there's ways that he wins the tournament, but to me, what are the numbers? Like, it's just a classic. That's not how I go about things. Show me the data.
I just maybe yeah.
You just don't
I'm
feel
not there.
it.
I'm not there. I don't feel it.
Yeah, Scotty Scheffler. I've
Mr. 59.
Never seen him up here. In terms of this expensive, like he's 9,000 DK salary in a pretty good field. I had him last week. I think he was 82 or 81 last week. So,
right.
Yeah, his finish and his 59 have definitely moved him up. He's 2 top fives in a row in good fields. So, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, Mr. 59. If we're looking at 4 days and birdie or better percentage, maybe that's where Scheffler makes sense. To me, though, even if we're talking about kind of the rookie of the year on our podcast last night, I think even in this tournament, I would prefer Hovland, for instance, over Scheffler. I think he got that price bump potentially a little bit too high over some of these guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that in the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think Scotty Scheffler is going to be pretty comfortable up in this range.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree.
It's just a matter of whether he's there right now to justify the price. So
yeah.
I don't mind it, but I don't think I'm going to get there myself. I think there's just too much inconsistency potential.
Yeah. So that's the end of the 9K, and we go to the top of the 8,000s here with Patrick Cantlay. And one of the, I don't know, he's just kind of one of my guys. He, for some reason, we were kind of talking about being early on Rory. Cantlay doesn't have, he missed the cut. He hasn't had a top 10 since, what was it? The Workday.
That was a pretty backdoor top 10, if I remember.
So he's not in form. He's not in the top 30 in the FedEx. I think he's 37 right now. So he needs a performance to get to the Tour Championship. He just has so much talent. It kind of is hard for me to see how he's not in the top 30 at the end of the year. But his form's not there. I want to be early on that type of guy. I think he's a future major winner, potentially within the next couple of years. It just seems when everyone's kind of zigging that way, I want to zag towards Cantlay.
Yeah, I mean, the model loves him. I have had Cantlay like maybe 4 or 5 most weeks in the last little bit, so it's getting hard to keep going back, but I'll end up with some ownership of him for sure, because I'm not going to keep going to the well, or I'm not going to stop going to the well and then have it hit.
And we should also mention he's Kevin's fade of the week. So there is kind of that narrative that a lot of people are kind of selling him right now, but I think it's a buy low. I really think it's a buy low.
Yeah. Moving on.
Speaking of fade of the week, next at 8,800 is Patrick Reed, and he is my fade of the week. I mean, we were talking last night. I like to pick guys that have. I don't want to pick a 7,500 or a 6,900 person as a fade. I think those are kind of. You need to be up here for someone that's your fade of the week, and I'm going with Patrick Reed. He barely made.
That's a little bit more Kevin style.
Yeah, that's
Kevin. Someone who's
pick on the guy when he can't defend himself. He barely made the cut. I don't know if you saw this, but he chipped in to make the cut at the Northern Trust last week. He,
So I did see it. There, the only video of it was like some random
yeah,
camera phone. Yeah,
yeah.
the club chuck and
So, I mean, he ended up 49, so he didn't really improve that much through the weekend. Ninth the week before. I mean, he has a couple top tens since the restart. I just don't think, for me, I just can't get there this week. Statistically, I can see how people might want to back him. Maybe it's a around the green type performance that gets him in a top 10 or a top 5, but for me he's a fade. Again, with the course, with the tournament, I just don't see him winning at the end, and that's why he's my fade of the week. Anything to add there, Craig? Craig? I can't hear you there. Oh, there you go.
sorry. No, I'm not super high on him. I think that I mean, Patrick Reed can get hot any week. I just don't think it happens consistently enough. I think there's reasons that he's not higher up this list. He can get streaky, but he's never been in the elite category for ball striking.
Mhm.
He's got a great short game. He can be a great putter. So when his putter is on, he can win tournaments. But I don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go there this week.
Tony Finau, 8,700. He's actually one of my favorite plays this week. I think the only reason he missed, you can pull him up on the model here. I think the only reason he missed the cut last week was just a horrible, almost kind of out of character putting performance where I guess we don't have it because he missed the cut, but it was just, it was off the charts bad for him when you can see consistent, at least positive in strokes gained putting. I think he's one of those really strong guys off the tee. If you look at his last, say, 5 tournaments, I think he's got 3 top 10s. He's not necessarily the guy to win, but when you're looking at your second or third most expensive player, he performs well in these big tournaments. He performs well in majors. He gets top fives. He gets top tens. He gets a ton of birdies. He's a good DK player in that regard.
Yeah, I like him. He I don't like him to win that much, but again, I don't need him to win. He is going to be second or potentially third depending on the lineup. I I think I think he's one of these guys where yeah he missed a cut, but he does top 10. Like I know this whole Finau not winning thing has become a bit of a meme, but
Right.
it's not usually that bad when a guy has 30 top 10s in the last few years. Like that's a pretty good thing, but it's
Yeah.
it's the fact that he does get all these top 10s is being used against him because they're not being converted into enough wins. Um, yeah, no, I'll have some ownership exposure to him. I'd love to see him actually win this one, but
For
yeah,
sure. Me too. Absolutely. And I think he could. Maybe a no cut event is kind of a better one for him to win. He just can kind of continue to shoot low scores and perhaps put it together for 4 days.
yeah, I do
We'll
think
see.
also the one thing about him is people do think because he's so long, they think that he really like is carried by his off the tee play, but he really is a great approach player too. And so
For sure.
what that means this week, I don't know, but someone who hits it as far as he does, having this balanced of a stat profile, it's just the kind of guy that I like to have him in my lineups if I can find a way to get him in.
Yeah. Craig, how about you start here with Tiger Woods, 8,600?
So Tiger is one of these guys that the model really is quite neutral on. So Tiger, just because he doesn't have enough stats to show up in the strokes gained databases the last couple of years, uh, he's not he's not in the model. But I so Tiger's gonna be my fade this week. I guess I should start
Yeah.
with.
Yeah.
I I know
I
that
like it.
Kevin's super excited because he shot 66 on the weekend, or sorry, on Sunday, and I just
They were just giving away 66s at TPC Boston, though. Everyone was getting them.
Yeah, you get a 66. You get
Oprah's out there.
I don't think that the playoffs are really Tiger's focus. I think that these are competitive warm-ups for him for the US Open. I don't think he's going to I don't think he's like yes, I think he's going to go out there and do what he can to try to make it into the Tour Championship, but I I honestly I think that he's going to end up missing and he's going to end up outside the top 30 and
I, I think that's actually a really good point. I think in terms of his US Open odds or chances, I think it's better if he misses the Tour Championship and gets a couple weeks rest rather than playing 3 weeks in a row with 1 week of rest going into the Winged Foot.
yeah. Well, and I mean Tiger
Not that he would ever, I mean,
he's
hope
not
for
going to
that or
throw it.
not.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's where when did he show up for the PGA Championship? It seemed like he was there 3 weeks before the thing started or something. Like I think that's what Tiger on one level, some level wants to do. His prep is all based around trying to win majors and yeah. So he's a fade. I'd like to hear a counter argument if you got one or
I don't. I mean, we can look at his last finishes, read them out there. What are,
so he's 58th last week at the Northern Trust, 37th at PGA Championship, and
right.
40th at the Memorial.
I think that's all that needs to be said. And that's where he might be again. I think he might be 25, 30. Maybe he takes a run at it, but I think that's kind of where he is potentially right now in these really stacked fields.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on from Tiger.
So let's go perhaps a little bit quicker now. Under 8,500, we have Matsuyama, Kisner, Harris English, Hatton, Scott, Wolf, Casey, Hovland, Billy Horschel, and Louis Oosthuizen, all packed within $500 there. So there is a lot of opportunity to kind of be a little bit different or do something different in that range. Who's kind of jumping out to you initially there?
Well, Matsuyama played pretty well last week. Oh, he only ended up with 29.
He's got a string of these 20s, and that kind of seems to be where he is. I was kind of I had question marks about Matsuyama for this tournament. I mean, he always seems to line up statistically well. He's kind of like Paul Casey. It seems like he should be there, but then they just don't come away with a win.
Well,
I don't know if
this
that's
is a bit surprising to me, just the fact that usually when he has a putting week like that, it's a top 10 or quite a competitive week for him. I mean,
right.
if you look at his tee to green, he's up there in like the elite players on the
Absolutely.
PGA Tour for the past 6 years. So
So actually, I think that's really telling right there. So looking at the last three tournaments, he's had one tournament where he's lost off the tee. He's had one tournament where he's lost on approach, and he's had a different tournament where he's lost on putting. So it doesn't seem to be just putting or just around the green or approach. Something is kind of going wrong, or for whatever reason isn't going perfectly right for him.
yeah, but I mean, because he shows up in my model fairly often because of how
Mhm.
good of a ball striker he is. Uh, these also like these are top 30, so it's not like it's going that wrong.
True.
It's just
Yeah.
what is making it so that they're not top tens, top fives wins. Um, he, you know, you do want to see him hitting the ball better than this. You don't want to see a .2 tee to green from Hideki.
Yeah.
If he gets back to his career average, which is maybe 1.3, 1.4 somewhere around there, and he
Hmm.
has a putting week like he does last week, then he's gonna be pretty darn competitive.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the model likes him. That's why he's a good GPP play every week because uh, he can win a tournament against a stacked field.
I kind of agree and disagree with that. I don't know if he's a good GPP week play every week, but he does pop and he can win when it all comes together. Right now, I don't know. Moving down to Kevin Kisner, two straight top fives. He seems to be on form. If you're looking for approach play or perhaps kind of three into those par fives, I think Kisner's got to be at the very top of your list for that fit in this on this course.
Yeah, I don't like Kisner. I mean, I know that he was, what was he, second last week?
He finished fourth.
Oh, tie fourth. Yeah, I guess Berger and Scotty Scheffler.
Harris
I don't know.
English. Yeah.
Harris English. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Um, yeah, I think it's too high for him. I like all these guys around him better than I like him. I mean, he's been putting it off the. These are bonkers putting stats for the last 6 tournaments or so.
Right.
He does have 3 top 5s in that time.
Right.
It's just I don't think he's going to continue to be as competitive. If you want to play the streak, I'm okay with it. I just don't see myself doing it.
So I mean, okay, so who do you like down in this range then? Who's jumping, or who perhaps do you do not like? For
I like
me,
these next 3.
okay, so we have English, Hatton, and Scott.
Yeah, I like all 3 of those guys. I think that these are the type of guys. I mean, we're kind of in that range of guys that don't get it done every week, but when they do have their best games, they can still win in these stack tournaments. It doesn't need to be a super out of left park win, out
Mm-hmm.
of left field win. Um, Adam Scott was a little bit pedestrian on the weekend. Uh, I don't mind it still. I don't know if he is like, I think the PGA Championship, the fact he came back hot. Um, I think there was a bit of I'm playing super competitive golf here for the first time in a long time, and then the reality of it sinks in a little bit in the next tournament.
Yeah, I don't know. I can get there with Haddon. I feel like his performances haven't been great, but I think he could be a good fit here with kind of needing precision into the greens. I love how Harris English is playing, and I think he's just kind of trending up. I think Adam Scott's kind of a trap here. I think you might have hearts in your eyes right now. I don't know what it is, but I don't think there's any indication to think from either of his 2 previous performances since the restart that he is going to do well here, especially when you have such a talented field.
Yeah, I guess for me with Adam Scott, it's a little bit like with DJ. I mean, in a lesser version.
Hmm.
Basically, when a guy has been that good for that long,
Yeah,
it's a little bit like Rory as well. Like I'm not going to only consider his recent form. I'm okay if you don't want to play him because of his recent form, but I also think those are the type of guys that it can turn around like that. And yeah, no, I don't know if I'll end up with a lot of ownership on him, but I don't mind getting there.
so I don't have anything else to say about these guys in the low 8,000s. The one thing I would say about Oosthuizen is I was on him last week. I think he really limped to the finish here. He got into the tournament, which I guess is all that matters. He did shoot 70 Sunday. He didn't really. I know he got that birdie on 18 to get here. It wasn't extremely kind of convincing, authoritative. I'm going to be at the BMW, so I'm passing on Oosthuizen this week. Any thoughts there?
No, I'm also passing on him. I like Usti, but it's just not. I don't like the price. I I like Victor Hovland here. We skipped over him, but I do think that's really good value for him. I think that other people that have been in that price range have had better finishes in the last little bit, but I think he's one of these guys that at any tournament here, he could win against a strong field.
I completely agree. I think Hovland's a great play. There, yeah, he just has so much talent that he can kind of flip it on. And another guy to be early on, maybe, even though he hasn't been playing necessarily that bad. He hasn't missed a cut, but he doesn't have that kind of a string of top fives or top tens like Berger or something that's priced way above him. But his talent is there.
Well, and especially in maybe the last 4 weeks, his best
Hmm.
finish in the last 4 weeks is a tie for 18th this past week. But prior to that, he had 5 straight top 25. So, um, yeah, no, I like the Hovland play. I think he's also the type of guy that in a no cut tournament, I think maybe he has one round that's middling, but and
Right.
sometimes that can happen prior
On
to the
Thursday
cut.
or Friday.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but I think over the course of 3 rounds, he's going to put himself in some sort of better position.
Yeah. So let's pick up the pace here a little bit. kind of go 7,900 to 7,500. Do you have anyone in this specific range that you want to talk about or jumps out at you? I can kind of give you my one play in my early lineup.
Well, I guess the one guy that I will. So there's a bunch of guys here I like. Woodland, I think, is a good play any week in GPP styles. He can beat anyone. Answer as well. He. Sorry, I'm thinking of Sungjae. Sungjae missed the cut, but he had an ugly, ugly Thursday, and then actually a pretty decent. I think he's 4 over 4 under in his Thursday Friday.
Yeah,
For me, that missed cut is not enough to shy away from him.
for sure.
The other one here that I'll just mention real quick is Cam Champ. This is going to be my sleeper of the week.
Nice.
I think his length is exactly the type of thing that the model's rewarding, which is why he is such a good value there. I think that his play at the PGA shows he can compete in strong fields.
Yeah.
I think he's one of these guys who's over the next little bit, his stock is on the rise. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. When we talked about kind of the tournaments that we know of here at Olympia, kind of leading the show, I didn't mention, I mean, came up in research today. I don't know if it came across your radar, the Fighting Illini Invitational. What do you call multiple people from Illinois? Illini? Illini. Anyways, they have an amateur event here, and it's been won by Cameron Champ, Matthew Wolf, and Maverick McNeely, and way back Harris English as well. So there's something to say about Cameron Champ. I agree. If it plays well to the Bombers, I think as he proved in the PGA Championship, he should kind of play above his price.
Yeah, the other thing, one of the course comps for this is Silverado North, which is where they play the Safeway,
Right.
and that is where he has won. So,
I like that. Yeah.
When you are a winner at the course comp for a place like this where there hasn't been as many PGAs, I think it does give you that little bit of a bump.
For sure. The one guy I wanted to mention here, you mentioned Gary Woodland. It just seems way too cheap. I know he hasn't been in his best form, but when we're looking at a venue where, I don't know, it plays major championship, it plays like a US Open. The fact that Gary Woodland is this cheap, kind of middle of the pack, it just doesn't seem right. And it's another one of these, well, he's trending down, but maybe you can be on him a little bit early when he turns around. And at this price, he doesn't even need to win. He just needs to get a top 10 or top 5 and get a string of birdies and maybe go below 70. I mean, all 4 days. He needs to kind of have that type of performance.
Yeah. Just a real quick one. He's also 39th, so he does need to play himself. A lot of these guys,
right?
I guess,
yeah,
are the type of guys who are going to be right outside the bubble here, and so yeah, I guess that whether he wants to play in the Tour Championship or not, I think he does. It's just I think everyone does. So
well, and I think for maybe someone of his stature, there's a little bit more pride there. I don't think maybe some of these guys playing more events have solidified their top 30, and he feels like he deserves that spot, and he'll fight for it, fight to get it.
Well, and I guess, yeah, there is a little bit of that. There's guys that have played in 25 events, and so they're above him in the FedEx Cup standings still, but those are the type that you do expect to fall off a little bit in the playoffs.
I mean, just quickly looking at names, Adam Long, Kevin Streelman,
Tyler Duncan.
He's just out. He's 32. From the list,
people that are ahead of Woodland still, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone else in that range that you?
I agree with Sungjae. I mean, he's always on my radar. Answer, I actually feel like is trending down. I feel like he was on a hot start after the restart, and he's trending down. Russell Henley, I could see if you go there back-to-back top 10s. I don't know if I'll get there myself. Alex Noren, maybe he's kind of found something as well. 4 straight tournaments, he's 22nd or better. 3 of those are top 10s. I don't know if I'll get there, but that's a trend that's hard to ignore. So those are kind of some guys around there.
Bubba, just real quick, Bubba. I think that he's the type of guy in GPP that, and this is where our approaches differ a little bit. I always like to have a ticket or two with Bubba because you never
He
know. You
wins.
never know what you're gonna get, and when it's good, it's good. So
No, I think that's all with limited entries. I guess just at the very tail end at 7,500 is Kokrak. He performed well for me last week when he is on my limited roster, and he's had a couple top 15s in a row. He's just a ball striker, and I
he
think
was a must make to get in too. So
yeah, he's trending up in my eyes.
okay, should we look at next 500 range? It's a
Yeah,
smaller one. There's not a ton of
7,400.
guys
It
here.
is a little bit smaller. I mean, the one guy, well, there's a couple of guys that pops out. Corey Connors is actually my top Canadian of the week, and he was even I was considering him for my sleeper of the week, but he is a guy that he's strong off the tee. He's pretty good accuracy. He's 25th last week. I know he's kind of got a couple missed cuts there. We don't have to worry about that. I don't know. I like Connors this week.
Yeah, so spoiler, but he's also my top Canadian. So we're going to be on the same page there.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see him. We were talking a little bit on the pod last night that we got 4 Canadians through to the BMW. They're a 70 cutoff, and there's never been 2 Canadians get through to the Tour Championship. So, if Connors and Hadwin can get there, or I mean, Hadwin, Hughes, and Nick Taylor. I think Nick Taylor's 40th, and Hughes is somewhere in the 30s, 36. So there's good shots if these guys have good finishes this week.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say for Hughes too, I think he was actually in the optimal DraftKings lineup last week with his T13, and he's had a couple nice. I mean, he's made cuts. He had a six. In what tournament was that?
Memorial. So
At
that's
Memorial.
a good
Uh,
field.
that's a good comp. That's a good field. So he's a really interesting price at that range. The one guy I mentioned last night who's really trending for me is Cameron Smith at 7,300. He's improved his last 4 tournaments, 68, 59, 43, 18. But not only with the 18, he was seventh last week in strokes gained tee to green. So I think he's trending up. I think he's coming into form at the right time. He's another one of these guys. Like he's a President's Cup team member. I think maybe he's a little bit undervalued here for what potential he has. He's also a winner too. He wins events. He's won this year. He wins in Australia. He takes home wins, and I like that at this range.
Um, yeah, no, anyone else? I like Joko Neiman. I've said this about him before, but he's the kind of guy that I think a no cut event favors him.
Sure.
So, um,
I think sadly a lot of this range is this kind of guys trending down. You look at Kuchar, Todd, Leishman. None of them really excite me. They're kind of all trending down. So yeah, I think pick and choose in this range or perhaps go a little bit lower. Yeah, I think that's it for
I don't
me.
mind
7,000.
Hubbard. He has been playing well. I mean, not blowing you away with his finishes, but he does have decent results since the restart.
And his approach has been strong. His approach game has been strong.
Yeah. Okay, jumping into I think we can do the whole sixes in a go here because it's not a huge field.
Yeah, I was actually just before we came on, I was doing some more research on Brian Harmon. I think another one of the he's improving 11th, I think last week, 27th the week before. If you want to go that approach with maybe guys that aren't long off the tee, have kind of a different style to play the course, he might be someone that's interesting. But I'll drop down to my sleeper of the week, and I teased this a little bit yesterday on the pod. But Robbie Shelton, $6,400, 13th. He went -6 in the last 6 holes to make the event, to get into the top 70. He has experience at the course. He said he loves it here, so I'm going with Robbie Shelton as kind of my lower GPP play this week. I think he might be a little bit popular, which scares me, but I like where where he's trending, let's say.
Yeah. So my sleeper was not as deep of a sleeper, but I like your style.
Mhm.
I like Homa here. I think that his ball striking is the reason that the model favor it has a favorable rating on him.
Mhm.
Um, I like Joel Damon here a lot. I think this is too cheap for him. I think he should be up here in the low sevens.
So
So
Joel Damon
I'll
is Kevin's sleeper of the week as well. So he's also on him.
oh, there you go. So he is also he's a good ball striker. He was top 10 in the PGA Championship, top 20 at FedEx St. Jude. He can compete in strong fields. I think he's one of these guys whose his stock is on the rise,
Mhm.
and I mean I suspect he's going to be a bit higher owned. Maybe the cut he cut on he was both him and Homa were cut on the number last week, so maybe that keeps him a little bit more under the radar. But I like him a lot. I'm gonna end up with him in a bunch of my DFS lineups. He's also like when you get down to this price in these fields without cuts, it lets you play more of those top guys. So
Yep.
I suspect I'm gonna do that quite a bit because I don't think there's as much of a difference between these low, 65 to 6,000, say, between those guys and the 70 low sevens as there is between the top guys and this next level. So I'd rather spend that money getting more top guys and sprinkle through these guys to have the lottery tickets.
Yeah, I actually am really glad you brought that up because I think that is absolutely a viable strategy. You load up on the guys who you think have the best chance to win. You know you're going to get 4 rounds unless there's some crazy withdrawal from the guys at the bottom. If they can kind of piece together maybe a top 35, a top 20, or and one of them cracks in the top 10, maybe that's enough. And you have kind of a few guys in the top five and a winner. I don't know. That doesn't seem like a crazy idea to me.
I also I don't mind the Canadian Nick Taylor. He doesn't, he has missed a few cuts of recent, but um, his stats are good. He's plus in everything, which once you getting down to 6,100,
Right.
or sorry, he is minus 0.02 in putting. So he's not a huge plus anywhere, but yeah, I think he can be valued. Harry Higgs too,
Yeah,
considering.
I don't think you can. I think you can go do a lot worse than Harry Higgs, 11th last week. I mean, if you're looking for just kind of a cheap punt option, I think he's completely fine there. He's also
He's a
flashed decent
volatile
times.
one. I've had him quite a few weeks, and you'll be like, wow, my guy's 3 under through the first 3 holes, and then you look at your phone again, and you're like, hey, how is he 2 over now? Like, what
Hey, what's
happened?
going on, man?
Yeah.
Tighten up that collar. You're very loose in the collar.
Did
Maybe
you
one more
hear?
button
Did you hear
will
his
help.
nickname on the broadcast this week?
I don't think I did.
Apparently, his I think it's his college team. They call him Big Beauty.
Really?
Yeah, it's a good
Oh,
one.
I like that. Oh, I like that. One name I want to mention here is Maverick McNeely. I said he won that amateur tournament at this course. They also had the 2017 Women's PGA Championship here, and his girlfriend Danielle Kang won. So
Gotta
if you're
like
looking
that
for if you're looking for
inside
a
info.
narrative inside info, Maverick McNeely, I was trying to find a little bit of more. I like the narrative approach. I was trying to find some stats to back it up, but I mean, he does have a couple top 10 since the restart. Yeah, I think you can do a lot worse than that. That's enough to kind of get a low owned roster type guy on my squad for sure.
Yeah, one last one here that we didn't mention was Brendan Steele, and I only mention it because he was another guy. The Silverado where they play the
Mhm.
Safeway. He is another guy who won there, so just something to keep in mind that this type of course he has performed on well before.
I like that. Should we flip over quickly to FanDuel and see if there's maybe some variance real quick between the titles?
Yeah, so I mean, main reason Adam and I do this type of thing is just because sometimes, especially I think with the top guys, but it can be through the whole price list. You'll get someone you like the play, but then the value just doesn't seem to be there as much, and so you'll see them that the people they're around are just different from one site to the other, and that's where if you're going to put them in a lineup or a few lineups, then do it in the one where you get the best value on them.
Yeah,
So
I
this
completely
would be
agree.
one to me that stands out a bit. Matsuyama, I mean, he is, I guess it's similar.
Right
Like
around
he's a
that kind of
little,
average salary type spot, right? 8,300,
yeah,
10,000 on FanDuel.
yeah, it just seems a bit cheaper to me on FanDuel than
Right.
on.
Should we quickly recap our picks, fades, sleepers, and top Canadians as well, Craig?
Yeah, do you want to run through that? I'll go through mine if you want.
Yeah, no, well,
Um,
I can go quickly here. My win was John Rahm. My fade was Patrick Reed. My sleeper was Robbie Shelton. That's more of a sleeper for DFS, not necessarily for outrights, but if you want to kind of throw a top 20, I mean, I don't hate that. And my top Canadian was Corey Connors.
so actually, while I have this cost-adjusted value up, you may see why my picks were what they were. But my pick to win was Bryson right here at the top,
Yep,
and my sleeper was Cam Champ, and my top Canadian was Corey Connors.
there you go.
And then my fade was the great one himself, Tiger Woods.
And Kevin's win was Justin Thomas. His fade was Patrick Cantlay, which I'm not on board with. His sleeper was Joel Damon, and his top Canadian was Mackenzie Hughes, who I think we both liked as well.
Yeah. Anything else you wanna get out right now?
No, I think that's it. It's Monday night, so that's kind of our first kind of preview at this. As things come along, we're going to post it on our website, www.grandstandgolf.com. Everything else will be pushed on Twitter, of course, at Grandstand Golf. Please like, please subscribe, please rate wherever you're listening or watching this show. We really appreciate it. Craig, where can people find you?
You can find me at Grandstand Craig on Twitter. I am going to be putting out an article tomorrow, just with some of the same stuff we've gone through, but really just hammering out a few of my top plays this week. I mean, this is a first look for me, so just taking a little bit more of a position on a few of them.
Right. Yeah, and this model that you've seen for both FanDuel and DraftKings is on our website, so you can play around with it. You can click on individual players to see their recent history, to see their strokes gain stats, all the way
Look at
really.
different ranges. Look at whether you want to look at a specific salary range and see what who is the best strokes gained there, say, all that kind of stuff you can just do yourself, and you don't have to have us walking you through it, telling you what to think.
Yeah, it's a fun model to play around with. There's a lot in it. There's a lot to kind of unfold as you kind of go through it. But yeah, it's on our website. It's published every Monday, grandstandgolf.com. I am Adam, and you can find me at Adam Bapty on Twitter. And I think that's it. If you have anything else to say, Craig.
Nope, thanks a lot. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, take care. See you, everybody.
What'd you think?